Ayin hey, ayin dalam abayz. So yesterday we were speaking about Mamar, and we established our mission. Could you just close the door, please? We established our mission on ayin dalam amud aleph as at least within Rabbi Ami, being that Rabbi Eliezer holds that when you have two Yavamin, then one of them can go ahead and be Mayfair. Why can one of them go ahead and be Mayfair? One of them can be Mayfair because the case is, as Rabbi Ami explains, because the guy did Mamar. Once he did Mamar, so now he has a closer bond to the woman than just being a Shomeres Yavam. One of the two Yavamin did Mamar, married her in a certain extent, and therefore we said that, according to Rabbi Eliezer, he can then go ahead and do Hafara. We explained as well that others said back to him, no, that's not true. Very nice that he did Hafara, or very nice that he did Mamar, but Lamais of the Metzius is that the other brother can still go ahead and still do Bia and still be married to her, and therefore the fact that he did Mamar should not be enough of a reason to go ahead and let him be Mayfair the NEDARIM, and therefore Rabbi Akiva holds that they cannot be Mayfair definitely with two, and even when there's only one Yavam, the strength of the Zika, the connection that we have to a Yavam, before we actually do the Yibam and before we're officially married to her, so that strength is not as strong as an Aris to an Arus, and therefore, although by an Aris and an Arusa, the Aris can go in and be made for the NEDARIM, a BAYT, he needs to do it with the father, but he can be made for the NEDARIM, but by a Shomeres Yavam, a person who's waiting for the Yibum or the Chalitza, so in that case he cannot be Mayfair the NEDARIM. So, my Tanya Kavase Rabbi Ami, says the Gemara on the bottom of Ayin Dalal Mebeis and the beginning of Ayin Hey Amud Aleph. Where do we have a brisa that supports Rabbi Ami, which seems to imply that Rabbi Eliezer, as Rabbi Ami learned, that Rabbi Eliezer learns the Mishnah as being the case that the guy actually did Mamar, Diktani, because it says, Bein Sha'asa Mamar, Bein Sha'asa Mamar. If you remember at the end of the day yesterday, so we brought a second price on the bottom of Aydal and Mabez. It was the same opinions that Rabbi Akiva holds that one guy, even one of them can't do Hafara, and Rabbi Eliezer holds that one of them can do, or even when there's two of them and one of them can do Hafara. But we gave different svaras yesterday. We went back and forth, and we said that according to Rabbi Eliezer, that if a woman to which we have no connection before the Erisin, we can go ahead and after the Erisin we can be made for the NEDARIM. So Kavachomer, to a woman that we have a connection before the quote-unquote Mamar, to a woman that was a Shomeres Yavam. So now when the Yavam does Mamar with the Yavama, so Kal Vachomer, for sure he should be able to be made for the NEDARIM. Rabbi Akiva said back to him, yeah, that's very nice, but Lemaisa, it doesn't help because, as we mentioned just a minute ago, because there's still another brother in the picture, and the other brother continually do the Bia. So then they said back to Rabbi Akiva, very nice, but Lemaisa, you should at least agree in the case where there's only one Yavam in the picture, where there is no other Yavam to sneak around the back. So at least in that case, you should agree that when there's that when there's one Yavam in the picture, and that Yavam does Mamar, he should be able to do the Hafara, just like a regular Aris can do it. Kavachomer, a Yavam should be able to do it, because Lemaisa, as we mentioned, he has a chelek, he's already he has a relationship with her from before based on God. So why do you, Rabbi Akiva, hold that even when you have one Yavam, you can't do it? So what did Rabbi Akiva answer? Rabbi Akiva answered, he threw up his hand and says, I don't care, one Yavam, two Yavams, Mamar, no Mamar, it doesn't matter. As we'll see in a minute, which we'll see today, we see from other cases that Lemaisa, the Shomeres Yavam, the connection before the Yibam, between a Yavam and a Yavama to be, that is weaker than an Aris, and therefore even though an Aris can go ahead and be Mayfair, the Shomeres Yavam cannot. But we bring the proof that we're talking about a case of Mamar, because when Rabbi Akiva goes back and says to him, I don't care what you're talking about, it doesn't matter, even with your Kal Vachomer, which is a good Kal Vachomer, Lemaisa, we have precedent from somewhere else that an Arus is going to be stronger than a Yavama. But within that basic argument, Rabbi Akiva says, Mamar, no Mamar, what does that imply? That implies Rabbi Akiva understood that Rabbi Eliezer in the beginning of the Mishnah was dealing with a case where the Yavam actually did Mamar. That's just the proof that the Gemara brings to show that Rabbi Ami's pshat, that Rabbi Eliezer was dealing with Mamar, is actually true. Diktani bein she'asa b'Mamar or bein she'lo asa b'Mamar, inami mereisha diktani. Or we can even learn from the reisha of that Mishnah, Rabbi Eliezer himself, we can learn that he's dealing with Mamar. Why? Because it says, Misha nichnasa lirishuso nigmaralo. that once the Yavama goes into his Rishus, the Yavam's Rishus, so now it's Nigmarala. What does that mean he goes into Rishus? V'idalo Kaddish my Nigmarala. What does that mean? They already have a connection. So if you're saying that it's just that he can do Hafara, can't do Hafara without the Mamar, what does that mean she went into his Rishus? She's not going into his Rishus, it's just a connection. It must be that when it says that she went into his Rishus, it means that he did Mamar. V'idalo Kaddish my Nigmarala, Tivshamine Kish Asba Mamar. Fine. So he did Mamar. But now we ended yesterday by saying that Rabbi Eliezer, even with Mamar, so Rabbi Eliezer says that with Mamar, so you have the case where the one guy now, even there's two Yavamin, the one guy can go ahead if he did Mamar, now it can be made for the NEDARIM. And for sure, if it's only one Yavam in the picture, he could do Mamar. But we said that Rabbi Akiva says back to him, I don't care. Even though in Svara, in Kavachomer land, your Svara makes sense, and really one Yavam should be able to do Mamar, it should be able to do Hafar after he did Mamar, because Lamaisa, we see that in a case where there was no connection beforehand, a regular case of Erison, the husband can now be made for the NEDARIM after the Erison, again, with the father. But then for sure, in this case, where there was some type of connection, where God says you have a Zika, you have a connection after the brother dies, so for sure, once he does Mamar, he should be able to be made for the NEDARIM. So the Gemara said, Rabbi Akiva said, no, I don't care what you say, Bein Shal Sabamar, Bein Shal Asamar. Why? Because Ukishar Dvarim on the bottom of Aital Mabeis, Kain NEDARIM. Because we have a precedent that, again, it's going to be weaker. We have a precedent from other halachas that the connection, even with the Mamar, between a Yavam and a Yavam is going to be weaker than an Aris and an Arusa. Where's this case that we see that an Aris and an Arusa has a stronger relationship than a Yavam and a Yavam, and therefore I can explain and understand why by a Yavam and a Yavam he can't do Afara, but by an Aris and Arusa he can't do Afara? Well, we know very well, he says, Mayu Kishar Devarim Kenedarim Diktani Amarabba Hachigitani Iata Modesh Ein Chayav in Skila Kinara Mirasa. Lamaisa, the bottom line is that when you have a Nara Mirasa, you have an Aris to an Arusa. If that woman goes ahead and she's with another man and they're warned and everything, so what happens? They both get skila, because we said for all intents and purposes, besides for the fact that she's not living with her husband-to-be, she's basically a married woman. If they break off the Eris, and it's not like today where they break off an engagement and they just say, okay, we go our own ways and give me back the ring. Back then they were actually needed a get. Mm-hmm. So over there, if she goes ahead and she cheats on him while she's an Aris or an Arusa, so then she gets skila and the man gets skila. That's not true by a Yavam and a Yavama. If a Yavam and a Yavama have Zika, even with Mamar, the halacha is that if the Yavama goes Lashuk before the Chalitza, before the Yibum, Eina Chanami, she's not supposed to do that. The halacha is that she doesn't get skila and the man doesn't get skila as well. Oh. So you see first right there that a Yavam and a Yavama, the Zika that they have even with Mamar is going to be weaker than an Aris and an Arusa, and therefore I understand that by an Aris and Arusa, since it's a stronger bond, he can be made for than Darim, but by a Yavam and a Yavama, it's not as strong of a bond, and therefore they cannot be made for the Nedarim. Amar Ravashi. Ravashi says, Masnisa Nami Deka. We can also prove from our Mishnah. We can make a diak from our Mishnah, because what's saying in our Mishnah? Ein Yavama Gemura Leisha Kishem Sharusa Gemura Leisha. Just like that a Yavama is not as close to his wife, to the Yavam with the Zika, like an Arusa is to an Isha. And therefore we come out that an Aris can be made fair than the Nedarim of an Arusa, but at least according to Rabbi Akiva, so a Yavam cannot be made for the Nedarim of his Yavama. Mm-hmm. It's interesting, one second, the Ran says, if you look at the first wide line in the Ran, Kashem Sha'arusa, the second, actually this the first to last white line, right after the Rashi ends, on Ayin Ham and Aleph. Ule'inyan halacha kaim balan Rabbi Akiva de'ena mefer lo le'echad u'lo l'shnayim. The Ran holds that l'maisa the halacha is like Rabbi Akiva, that you cannot be made for a neder even with mamar if you are a yavam and a yavama. Why? Skip down 3 lines. V'kevan dekalsi ben aizel Rabbi Akiva v'zachinu Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Yeshua bedina d'lo hadru le'midi aktina kavasi. Because l'maisa, as we say in life, whoever gets the last laugh gets the last laugh. And l'maisa, it seems from our Gemara, the Rabbi Akiva had the last laugh. He got the last words in. Nobody was able to reject him based on what he said. And since nobody rejected him based on what he said, it must be that the halacha is like Rabbi Akiva, and that an aris can be made for the nedarim of an arusa, but a yavam cannot be made for the nedarim of the yavama.
So I understand that there's a stronger bond between arusa than yavam, but that doesn't prove that you can't he can't reject her neder.
You're saying even though it's not as strong, but lamaisa, maybe it's strong enough. It's not as strong, but maybe
there's no proof. I mean, it hasn't proven anything. He just said, okay, he can't.
So I'll say back to you that what's he going to say? I could say back to you, yeah, but lamaisa, you need to prove to me. The burden of proof is on you. If you want to be able to give him the right to be made for the NEDARIM, which again, especially if you're saying that you're dealing with a deoraisa, with a biblical level thing, where if he's going to be made for the NEDARIM, and now she goes ahead and does that, so now she's basically over an issa deoraisa, unless the hafara was a good hafara, so I can maybe throw it back to you and say, okay, very nice, you're right, but Lamaisa, prove to me that a Yavam should have the power. I shouldn't have to prove to you that he has the. I shouldn't have to prove to you that a Yavam doesn't have the power. You should have to prove to me that you want the Yavam to have the power. So we said that by an aris, we've proven numerous times through the Gemara. We've proven through the psukim. But now that you're saying, okay, so Yavam should be the same, I'm saying to you, no. We see that an aris is actually stronger. The punishment is stronger, and therefore you need to find me another source in order to say, okay, I want a Yavam to be able to make for the Dharma of the Yavam.
The only thing that bothered me slightly when I looked at that plumber, it can only be broken by get, which I thought
that it's still a kinyan gomer, right? In a chanami, but at the same token, since the other brother goes ahead and he can go, and based on what we're saying now in the Gemara, that Lamaisa, even though it needs a get, it's still not going to get skila. So I understand that it's not on as high of a level. So now you need to prove to me to get it to that level of an aris and an arusa. Zak the Mishnah. Haomer leishto, or what person says to his wife, and we had this Mishnah already quoted in the Gemara on Ayin Hayam Aleph. Kol NEDARIM shetaduri mikana cha'avo mimakom ploni harei hein kayam. And he's going on a business trip, and he says, not as of today, I'm leaving on Sunday, but when I leave on Sunday, says the Mishnah on Ayin Hayam Aleph, says the Mishnah on Ayin Hayam Aleph, that the guy says, when I leave on the business trip, any NEDARIM that you take while I'm away should be mayfeared as soon as they're taken. So achav makom harein kayam, and if he says that they should be makim, lo amar klum, he didn't say anything. He can't be makim then without his presence. Again, we discussed this in the context of whether he needs to actually hear the NEDARIM or not. But he says any neder you take while I'm away becomes automatically making. But over here he says Aryai mufarin. If he says that any neder you take while I'm away should be mayfair on the spot, Rabbi Eliezer Omar mufar, it actually works. V'chamer eino mufar, and Chaim say it doesn't work. It can't be mufar. Why not? Amar Rabbi Eliezer. Why is it that if he says now any nedarim you take while I'm away, so they automatically will become annulled as soon as you take them? Because im hafer nedarim shebo liklal isur lo yafer nedarim shelo bo liklal isur. It's a very interesting and very straightforward kal vachomer. We know that when a wife takes a neder, so the husband can be made for the neder that she just took. So kal vachomer, he should be able to be made for a neder that she didn't even take yet. If the isser or the neder is sitting here right now and I can still get rid of it, so clearly I should be able to get rid of in the future a neder that she's going to take. That's a very good kal vachomer. Amru lo, so the Chachamim will say, no, you can't be made for a neder in the future. So what's the problem? Hareyu omer yishayi kimenu v'yishayi frenu. Very nice. Your kal vachomer seems to make sense. But Lamaisa, the pasuk says, Xeris Akasa v'Hekesh, that whatever the din is by Yikimenu is the din in by Yifirenu. Et shebalakal hakem balaklal hafer, lo balakal hakem, lo balaklal hafer. But if it doesn't come to hakem, then it doesn't come to hafer. And you agree to me that he can't be making the neder in his absence, can't be making the neder in the future, he can't be making the neder in advance. So if he can't be making the neder in advance based on the pasuk, then even though the svara makes sense that he should be able to be made for the neder in advance, Lamaisa, the pasuk tells us he can't go ahead and be made for the neder in advance either. The question is, why can't he be making the neder in advance? Well, think about it for a second. You don't have the same kal vachomer. Again, what does he want to do? He says that when you take the neder while I'm away, it should be upheld or it should be nullified and void. Well, I understand we said if it should be nullified, I understand why it works, because if the neder is sitting here now, forget about me going away. I want to be made for my wife's neder that she just took. I'm allowed to be made for it. So seemingly I should be able to be made for something that doesn't even exist, that's going to come into existence. I should be able to prevent it basically from coming into existence. But if I have something that's already in existence, so very nice, I could be making, I can go ahead and I can uphold something that's in existence. But that's not a kal vachomer to say that I should be able to uphold something that's not yet in existence. Something that's not yet in existence should be harder to uphold than something that's currently in existence. So while I have the kal vachomer to say that I should be able to get rid of something, because if I could get rid of something in existence, I should be able to get rid of something not in existence, the kal vachomer the opposite way doesn't work. Just because I can uphold something in existence doesn't mean that I can uphold something that's not in existence. It's harder to uphold something that's not in existence. And in order for a kal vachomer to work, then the thing you're learning from needs to be the harder thing to do. So if it's harder to get rid of something that's here and we know that that's okay, kal vachomer, I can get rid of something that's not here. But if it's easier to uphold something that's already here, then I can't say kal vachomer, I can go ahead and uphold something that's not yet here. That's a svara, very, very stark svara. So once you have that, it's very good. So once you have that, now I understand. So the Rabbi Eliezer says, that's my kal vachomer. That's why you could do hafara and not hatara. But the Chachamim say, very nice, I agree with you. I can't argue on that svara. It's a very nice svara. That Lamaisa, if it's sitting here and I can get rid of it, clearly I could get rid of it if it's not here yet. But we have a problem. Because we all agree, and you agree to me, Rabbi Eliezer, that we can't be making it, because I can't go ahead, I don't have a kal vachomer to uphold it, because I can only uphold something that's here, not something that's going to happen while I'm on my trip. But Lamaisa, if I only, even though I have your kal vachomer, Lamaisa I have a pasuk. What do you want me to do with the pasuk? Yisha Yifrenu, Yisha Yikimenu. And Lamaisa tells me whatever the din is by Akama, the din is by Hafara. And therefore, even though your kal vachomer is a very nice thing, we all agree that he can't be making in advance. If he can't be making in advance, and even though there's a good svara to say he should be able to be made for in advance, Lamaisa, there's nothing I can do. I can't fight with the pasuk, speak to God, and Lamaisa, I can't be made for it in advance either, even with the svara. That's the machlokas between Rabbi Eliezer and Chacham. What would Rabbi Eliezer say back? Seemingly we don't learn that from here. The hekesh from Yishayi Femenu, Yishayi Kemenu, we're not going to learn to here, and therefore Lamaisa could still be made for. The Gemara is going to ask a very interesting question. This is very important and a very interesting question. Ibayilahu, Rabbi Eliezer. Again, Rabbi Eliezer holds that you can be made for a neder in advance. Let me ask you the following question, and we'll say it outside. He's being made for the neder that she's about to take. She takes the neder when he's away. What happens to that neder? Well, there's two options. Either, as she's saying the neder, it's basically disappearing in the air, because the Lamaisa, the husband, was made for it in advance. So as she's saying it, it's disappearing, and the neder never even takes place. Or you could say what? That the neder she makes, it takes place for whatever the amount of time is between the first place and second place in the Olympics, whatever that is in speed skating, 0.00005 of a second. It takes place for 0.00005 of a second, but Lamaisa, then it disappears, because he was made for it. Then you're going to say, what's the practical difference? What's the practical difference if it just never is chal, and it goes ahead straight into the air as she takes it, or it comes and it's chal for 0.00005 of a second? So let's see for a second what the practical difference is. 1 second. Meichal chalanu betelin. Is it actually batel? Or dilma lo chalin klal? Is it chal and then it's batel, or it's not chal klal? Well, l'may nafkamina. What's the practical difference? Turn the page to the top of Ayin Hayom and Beis. Very interesting case. Kigon de atfis achrina bahad nidra. What happens? I'm sitting next to this woman as she's saying the neder while her husband's on vacation, and I say, I like her. I want to do whatever she's doing. Okay, so she takes a neder that says, I want to be a Nazir. So I said, I'm going to be a Nazir just like her. Or, Kamoni, I'm going to be like her. So now, if it's a very practical difference. If, in fact, her husband was made for the neder, her husband was made for the neder in advance. If, in fact, we hold that when he was made for the neder, it's as if she said blah, 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 then when I said I want to be like her, it's as if I say blah, 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 blah. But if I say I want to be like her, and what that means is that it's chal for 0.0005 seconds, and then the husband's hafara automatically kicks in, so then mine is chal for 0.005 seconds, only one problem. I don't have anybody to be made for my neder, and now I become a Nazir. That's the practical difference, says the Gemara. There was somebody else who linked or grabbed onto her neder. If you say that her neder was chal and then disappears, so very nice for her, she's not a Nazir, but I'm a Nazir now because mine was chal and now there's nobody to make it disappear. But if it was never chal and it's basically as if as she spoke, her neder disappeared, so then me, who's sitting on the side and being like her, so then Lamaisa, I would be the same and I would not be a Nazir. So what's the halacha?
Right. Didn't we say when we first learned the sugya that when he does this in advance, he's saying that when I hear of it, when I come back.
So that's a discussion. Okay, that's a discussion. That maybe it's only going to kick in once he hears. This seems to be learning that it would kick in even before he hears.
Yeah, okay.
But one can say that no, because we said over there that I believe even if you say about hearing, once he hears, so then it would kick in from this point.
Right.
So that would be a nafkamina as well.
So retroactively, goes back.
Right. The but then we still have the question. So it goes back to the moment she said it. So Lamaisa, for her, it's gone.
Right.
But if there was another guy sitting there, Lamaisa, either it was the Metzias is still there. Was it chal or was it just gone right away? Very nice. We had to wait for him to hear it in order for it to kick back. But it's still going to kick back from the time that he actually.
Not the issue if someone heard him or say it. And
correct. Because it's still going to definitely. Everybody agrees that it's going to kick back from the time that she took the neder. Because if not, then. It's basically going to be make him. So you still have the Metzias, you still have the problem with the guy who's listening and says, I want to be like her. Never say I want to be like her. Okay. So what's the din? So we're going to bring 3 different tashmas. I'm only going to do the first 2 today because Dr. Ryder, who very graciously offered to give the DAF over Shabbos, is going to pick up from the Tashma, 5 lines from the bottom of the DAF. So we're almost done. So we're going to bring 2 proofs to try to prove whether it's Chal or not. Tashma. Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer says, Im hafer nedarim shabo leklal iser, lo yafer nedarim shalo bo leklal iser. So what do we see here? Well, we see that we go to the words of our Mishnah. If you go to the words of our Mishnah, so it'll give away within, again, we're asking within Rabbi Eliezer, who says that you can be made for in advance. So what's his svara? So he explains his svara. If you could be made for nedarim which are already existent, obviously you should be able to be made for nedarim that have not yet come into existence. Shma mina lo chalin. So we learn from here that the neder is not in fact ever chal. Why? So seemingly, as the Ran explains, seemingly the lashon shelo ba'u leklal iser, that they have not come to Isser, seemingly that they're not going to come to Isser. Right? Again, what's this for? If you have something that already was Asr, she already asked it on herself, I could be made for that, so then I should be able to be made for something that hasn't yet come. Well, Shalabo L'Klal Isser, it hasn't come to Isser, because it's not going to come to Isser, because it's not going to be Chal. That's seemingly the thing. But the Ran explains even deeper than that. Let's see the Ran. Tashma, on Ayin Hayamid Beis, on the right side. Nira Be'enai. De Mishum Hachi Mash Malay, De Lo Chaylinan, Afagav De Lishna De Masnisan Lo Dayakachi. Let's see. Mishum. I'll tell you why Shma Mina Lo Chalin. I'm going to tell you, forget about the words of the Mishnah for a second. I'm going to tell you that even in Svara, why in Svara I could tell you that the halacha is that it's not going to be chal. That when he says that the hafara, again, within Rabbi Eliezer says that the hafara kicks in advance. We're trying to figure out what's the metzias. Practically, what's happening? Is it just basically never like coming out of her mouth and disappearing? Or is it actually being chal for 0.005 of seconds? So he's going to prove that in Svara, it's lo chalin, and that it never, ever takes effect, even for 0.005 of a second. Why? What's the svara? Look at the Ran. Mishum. De bishlama I amar lo chaylin aizel lekal vachomer di hafara mivatel nedarim shecholu kvar kol shekein de me'ak v'shalohu yicholu. Could think about the kal vachomer. What was a kal vachomer? If I could get rid of something that already was in this world, then I can get rid of something that's not yet in this world. Yeah, but think about it for a second. Avali Omar dechaylenu betelim my kavachomer kevan dechayolin harebo leklalis. Very nice, but you're not concentrating. Lamaisa, what happens once she takes a neder? Once she takes a neder, now when I said in advance I'm going to be made for it. So what happens once she takes a neder? Well, if it was chal, so then you have no kavachomer. Because if in fact it's chal for 0.005 and now you want his hafar to kick in, so what's the kavachomer? Just like I was able to be made for something that was chal, I should be able to be made for something that's chal. What do you mean? If it kicks in, then it was also chal. Very nice it was chal for 0.05. That's only because the afar kicked in. The chavachomer only works if you say, if I'm able to be made for something that's in this world now, I should be able to made for something that's never going to be chal in this world. I.e., because my afar is going to kick in before it's ever chal. That's the svara that he learns. So what do they say back to him? They say back to him, back in the Gemara, Mi kitani she'enan bain. Does it say, did Rabbi Eliezer say that I can be made for nedarim that are usher now? I should be able to be made for, of course I can be made for nedarim that are not coming into the world? It doesn't say that are not coming into the world. That are not coming into the world implies it'll never be in the world because it'll never be chal. Shelo bo kitani. It says, you have to be medayik in the Mishnah, it says shelo bo, that they haven't come into this world. Adayin lo bo, they haven't yet come into this world, but they will come into this world because they're going to be chal even for a second. And then at the Ran explains at the end, you still have a kavachomer. What's the kavachomer? Again, even if you learn that, we seem to learn that the kavachomer only works if you learn that it's not going to be chal. What's the kavachomer? Even if it's chal for a minute, so where you have the kavachomer? The Ran says you still have a kavachomer. What's the kavachomer? That if afara is mivatel and nedarim that are already here, v'lo aita afarimem. Again, what happened? There's something, she took a neder, and now I want to be made for this neder. So l'maisa, this is just a self-standing neder, and I can be made for the neder. Everybody agrees. So the question becomes, what's the kavachomer? So for sure, I should be able to be made for a neder that has not yet been chal. Okay, but very nice, it's going to be chal, so what's that kavachomer? No, because the neder that she takes, since I've already done my afara, that neder basically, as the Ran explains, has a little bit of a mum on it from the second that she takes it. The second that she takes it, it's already scarred, because we know it's going to be mayfeared. So Lamaisi says we can still learn the kavachomer. Basically, again, it's a little bit complicated, but what the Gemara seems to be saying is that you have no kavachomer, you have no proof here, you can't prove that it wasn't chal. Even if the neder is chal, Lamaisi, even if it's chal for 0.05 of seconds, you still have the kavachomer, and you can still say if he could get rid of something that's in this world already, he should be able to get rid of something, even if it's going to be chal for 0.05 seconds, he should be able to get rid of that neder as well. And therefore you have no proof whether when she takes the neder, which has already been huffered Haferd, in advance, whether it's going to be chal or not. Tashma, another proof to try to prove, and we'll end with this. Amalan Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer says, "Uma b'makom she'ein mefer nidrei atzmo misha nadar mefer nidrei atzmo misha tidor eino din she mefer nidrei ishto achelo tidor." I'm sorry, I didn't read it right. Uma b'makom she'ein mefer nidrei atzmo misha nadar mefer nidrei atzmo achelo yidor makom she mefer nidrei ishto misha tidor eino din she yefer nidrei ishto achelo tidor. What's the svar over here? Well, let me ask you a question. What happens when you have a regular guy and he takes a neder? Can he be made for the neder after he takes it? Regular guy who takes a neder, can he be made for his own neder?
No.
Cannot be made for his own neder. What happens if a regular guy gets up on Rosh Hashanah? I don't know if you remember the Gemara, but it was a few dapim ago, about 40 dapim ago, or 30 dapim ago. If a guy gets up on Rosh Hashanah and says, any nedarim that I take this year should be automatically made for, does it work? It works. Yeah. So you have a guy who can't be made for his nedarim that he takes, but he can be made for nedarim in the future. So Kal V'chomer, a guy who can be made for his wife's nedarim that she takes, should surely be able to be made for his wife's nedarim in the future that she has not yet taken. Very straight and strong Kal V'chomer. So the Gemara says, "My love de ishto dumya delays," and not that the wife is like him. Ma hu de lo chaylin, and we know that now we're going to compare and say now we're going to compare the details as well. When we said that the guy can be made for his own nedarim in advance on Rosh Hashanah, we know that that means from other places that the neder is never chal. It never takes effect. Even if he takes a neder now, Lamaisa, that neder never takes effect because he was already made for it. So just like he was lo chaylin, af ishto nami lo chaylin. It must be if you're making the Kal V'chomer and saying for sure he should be able to be made for his wife's nedarim in advance. So just like when he was made for his nedarim in advance, the neder's never chal. So too when he's made for his wife's nedarim in advance, the neder's never chal either. That's the proof to show that it's not chal. So the Gemara answers, and we'll end with this line, lo. Ha k'de'isa v'ha k'de'isa. And it's a very straightforward svara as well, even though there's a long rod here. L'maisa, I could learn a Kal V'chomer without learning all the details of the Kal V'chomer. That means you're making a little bit of a stretch. You're trying to prove as follows. I have this thing, and I can go ahead, and if I take a neder, I cannot get rid of this neder, because I don't have the ability to get rid of my own nedarim. At the same token, on Rosh Hashanah, if I sit there and say any nedarim that I take this coming year will automatically be meifir, so I could do that. So seemingly, if I have my wife's nedarim, which I can get rid of when they're here, of course I can get rid of in advance. So you wanted to prove for me that just like when I get rid of my nedarim in advance, so they're never chal, so too it must be that since you're making the Kal V'chomer from this case of me getting rid of my nedarim in advance, it must be that when I get rid of my wife's nedarim in advance, they're never chal either. Says the Gemara, what do you mean? Ha k'de'isa v'ha k'de'isa. Who cares about the exact details of whether the neder is chal or not? All we care about is the broader picture. I can't be made for my own nedarim, but I can be made for them in advance. So I can be made for my wife's nedarim, I can be made for them in advance. That doesn't mean you have to learn all the details of the din either. Just because the details happen to be that when I'm made for my neder, it happens to be that it's never chal. That doesn't mean that just because I'm making a Kal V'chomer from my nedarim to my wife's nedarim, that I need to take the details as well. And therefore, by my wife's nedarim, just because I can be made for them, for sure I can be made for them based on the Kal V'chomer. If I can be made for my own, I can't be made for my own, but I can be made for my own in advance. For sure I can be made for my wife's in advance when I can be made for hers right now. But Lamaisa, that doesn't mean that I carry over all the details, and just because when I'm made for mine in advance it's never chal, doesn't necessarily mean that when I'm made for hers in advance, it means that it's not chal. Maybe when I'm made for her in advance, in fact it is chal for 0.05 seconds, and therefore this guy would in fact become a nazir. And therefore we still have no proof as to whether when a man goes ahead and he's made for his nedarim before going on the business trip, at which case Rabbi Eliezer says when she takes a neder, in fact it is meifir, in fact it is waived, but we still don't know based on these two braces whether that means that when she takes it disappears into the air, or whether it means that it's chal for 0.05 seconds. What's the nafkamina? The practical difference is that if a guy's sitting on the side and says I want to be like her, so if you say that it disappears into the air, then he will in fact not become a nazir. And if you say that it's chal for 0.005 seconds, very nice, she won't be a nazir because it was already meifir by me, but since it was chal even for 0.005 seconds, therefore he will become a nazir. We still don't have an answer to that question, and we'll pick up with the next tashma tomorrow.